Welcome to another episode of Coming Out Stories from What Goes On Media. It's a podcast about one of the most important conversations of your life. I'm Emma Goswell. Hey, listen, we've been busy bees in the last couple of months promoting our book. And yes, it does still feel very weird saying that. A big thank you to Diva Magazine, The Stylist, Radio 5 Live, Talk Radio, and even the World Service, to name but a few places we've cropped up talking about coming out stories. It is time, though, to get back to what we do best, talking to inspirational people from the LGBT plus community. So in this episode, I chat to a fellow published author, the graphic artist and writer Eleanor Crewes. She's behind the book The Times I Knew I Was Gay. Just wait till you hear the extremes that she went to confirm her sexuality.
I sort of came to the conclusion that I was really gay when I was in primary school, and it was secondary school that sort of freaked me out and pushed me into this closet. So I would say definitely from the age of 6 to 11, and then 11 I, changed school and all of that, went back in.
Do you think you were sort of out as a 6-year-old then, or?
I think I probably would have been able to come out sooner if I'd stayed in that environment of just like complete ease and comfort. But that's also just, childhood. You don't have any idea about the world yet. So that's my dreaming.
Oh, you don't have so many hang-ups about gender, do you? Or how you're supposed to act,
No. So I like to think that I would have come out earlier if I just stayed as confident as I was when I was really young. But yeah, sadly, I let secondary school get to me.
Well, it gets to a lot of people. You're not the only one, that's for sure. So let's go back to when you were sort of 6 to 11, though. What sort of things were you doing that sort of singled you out, do you think, or made you feel like you're a bit different?
Just completely obsessed with horror stories. And I went to a Catholic primary school, and I wouldn't say that everyone in my class was really Catholic, but, I was definitely the most like, I'm going to wear goth crucifix and I'm going to go to accessories and get studded cuffs that you would, like jewelry cuffs and like wristbands, and everything was to do with skulls and black and pink, and very Camden Town in the late 90s. That was my aesthetic.
A goth child. I'm loving this.
Yeah, very much encouraged by my parents as well. But yeah, I'd say those were the things that made me stand out a little bit against my peers.
Yeah. So what changed when you went to secondary school then, you think?
I just went from a really small primary school that was closeted in its own ways to a very big secondary school with just so many people. And I was really shocked when suddenly I'd gone from being like in the oldest class and I was shoved back to being the youngest class, and I had all these years to catch up. I'd done all that work getting from reception to year 6, and suddenly I was like back at the bottom. It just really freaked me out. And also having all these people that I didn't know, and a very small amount of friends from my primary school came with me. I was lucky that 2 of my best friends, it was, the people who came with me were very close friends of mine, but you just didn't have that like ease in classes. And people would say things about you, and I just didn't know how to really deal with it because I'd been in such a sort of like rosy-cheeked primary school.
So you say people would say things about you. Did they spot you as being different and other?
Yeah. And I talk about this a bit in my book. I was always picked out as, being like an emo kid or being a goth or a scene kid, and, being different in that way. I was never picked on for being gay. I was never seen as gay. Like, I didn't know, no one else really picked that up about me. But it was just more the way that I presented myself that I was aware that I was different.
Well, I know from your book you were you sort of distanced as being different for being such a Buffy obsessive. Is that what it was? Yeah.
Yeah, it was like what that led into. I loved Buffy, and then that meant that I loved vampires and I loved demons and I loved reading ghost stories. And, I would often go to the library. So the first 2 years of secondary school, I usually spend my lunch break in the library reading, because it was just so much more comforting than having to be out in this absolutely massive playground with so many older children that I didn't really feel brave enough to be around them.
So I think it goes to show, actually, that, you know, a lot of the times on this podcast we talk about being bullied for, you know, homophobia or transphobia or something to do with your sexuality or gender, but actually it doesn't sound like it was particularly about that. It was about the sort of choices that you made socially, really.
Yeah, definitely. I always felt it was about that, 100%. It was just, you know, wanting to wear more black eyeliner than...
I mean, I'd encourage that, but I grew up in the 80s when eyeliner was very much encouraged for boys and girls. So when did you decide you definitely were a homosexual then, do you think?
So that was when it was the last summer break before I went into the third year of my university. So last summer holiday, you know, official schooling summer holiday. And I was 20.
Wow, okay. Yeah, I thought you were going to say at school, but no, you were university age then, yeah.
Yeah, most of my schooling. So yeah, it's like I said, it was that I had 1 year of schooling out, and then the rest of it was...
But did you ever get tarnished with that brush? Did people ever go, you know, oh, you're into horror, you're into goth, but also you're a lesbian, you're a dyke? Did you get any of that?
No, I can't say that I did. What I did get was, oh, you're gay. Is that why you've cut your hair short? That's really stereotypical. Like, someone actually said that to me, and I thought, fuck you. My hair looks nice short. I've tried to grow it long for years and years to be my most heterosexual self, you know, appear attractive in a like stereotypical woman way, and I love it short. So
that's so funny. Do you know, I did the exact opposite. As soon as I realised that I was gay, the first thing I did was decide I was going to grow my hair long, because I just couldn't cope with being a stereotype. I just didn't want to be. I wasn't that out, obviously. I was like, no, I'm going to hide with my long hair, and everyone will think that I'm straight because I've got long hair. Oh, God. So how did it feel then, discovering in your second year at university that you were gay? Was there something that brought it on, or a person that brought it on?
I think I've been dallying with so many ideas of what it was that I was not confronting in my life, and being at university did put me in a more like queer environment, so I would speak to people more often and think, and you know, I guess like cogs maybe started to turn in my head where I was like, oh, maybe that's me, that sounds cool, that sounds more fun than what I'm doing. And then in my second year I lived in a flat, and I was surrounded by a lot of friends who, you know, one person was particularly going through like a similar thing to me, of like kind of working out whether or not they were queer in some way, and that was really helpful to sort of like have a consistent narrative. Like we were both sort of like, oh, like we can talk about these things together because we're like literally in the same boat. But she just wasn't. Maybe it wasn't right for her, and it was right for me. And so I sort of ended up having to like come out by myself, and I stuck to it that final time. And it was a really strange year. But it's just made for like just such a better way of living. Yeah,
it's a lot easier on the outside of the closet for sure. So who was the first person you told them? Was it someone at university then?
Yeah, so I was telling my housemates, because we all lived together. I'd sort of like slowly come out bit by bit. Like it would be like, so how are you feeling today? And I'd be like, yeah, I think I am gay, but.
Definitely more gay than Tuesday last week. Yes.
Yeah. No. Honestly, that's what it was like. I was like, yeah, I think I'm right. And then I had a date with a guy. I was still scrolling through Tinder this whole time, and I found this man, and I was like, oh shit, this man is exactly who I've been saying like I need to find. Like, he's tall, he rock climbs, he cooks, he's older than me, he's attractive, he hikes, he camps, all of these things. I was like, I can't not try, because this is literally what I've been saying. I can't find a man like this, so like nothing's working. And I went on a date with him, and it just wasn't romantic. And I knew, I was like, I gave myself like a run up to it. I was like, if it doesn't work, you are gay. And at the end of the day, I was like, yeah, I'm gay. And then I told my brother.
So it sounds like that guy was like your litmus test, like.
Yeah, no, exactly. So after that date, I told my brother, and he was my first official one hit, I'm gay.
How was the convo?
Yeah, completely fine. He'd come to my flat to help me move out, and we'd gone out for a walk to get some lunch, and I told him, and he was really just sweet. I've got a very sweet, gentle older brother who's just lovely. So it was completely fine, and it made me feel much bolder for telling my parents that coming weekend.
Oh, okay. And how did it go with the rents then? Because that's always the big one, isn't it, really?
Yeah, so I didn't actually have to tell my mum because they'd just come back from holiday and she was sitting in the living room with me and she was like, oh, how did that date go? And I was like, no, it was okay, but I'm not going to see him again. And then I don't know, she was just sort of like probing a bit. And then apparently I just turned to her with like the biggest sturgeon face and like, so like, oh, mum. And then she just said, you don't like boys, do you, Ellie? And I was like, no. And then first thing she said was, have you told your father? And I was like, no. So she said, go and tell him. And I went into the dining room where my dad was on the computer, and he was very, very sweet and just hugged me, and it was all fine. But yeah, I think it was funny that my mum just knew to ask.
Yeah, mums always know. They have an uncanny knack of knowing, don't they, really? But did you discuss it with her afterwards? Did she say, oh, yeah, I kind of knew I was waiting for you to bring it up, or, I thought for years and I was waiting for a way to speak about it, or no?
Yeah, we did. We had a lot of conversations like that, but she said that she just had no idea. And it made her quite sad and just feeling like, how could I have not known? And I always say to her, I was like, well, I didn't know. So how could you have known? I did everything I could to not know. Just always talking about boys. I was really, really stressed about the way I looked. It would always be like, I've got to have the most amazing hair and my makeup needs to be on point, and always a fussing over the way that I was viewed, by men. And so I guess I couldn't really have given her any hint that maybe I was gay, because I was doing so much to not let that.
So it sounds like it was quite a revelation then in your second year at university, even to yourself, to sort of realise this. Yeah. And then did you go off like a lot of people do, like children in sweet shops, and just go, whoa, I'm gay, join all the societies, go on thousands of dates,
No. I think I was still quite nervous. I was so happy. I didn't go on loads of dates, but I started to embed queer theory into every project that I could at university. I became that person who was like, well, if you read it this way, you will see that the relationship between this person and that person in that book could be read as this.
Did you revisit Buffy with that viewpoint?
You know what? I watched Buffy again quite, recently to coming out, because I was completely obsessed with the L Word, of course. That was on Netflix just as I came out, and just completely obsessed.
So what led you to putting pen to paper then and doing your book, really?
Well, because I came out just as I was going into that final year, I was thinking, what the hell am I going to do when I leave? I'd specialised in screen printing, which isn't really something that can be completely viable to a self-funded lifestyle. So I thought, can I do something maybe online, like a Tumblr comic or something? There's a comic book shop in London called Gosh. I know them quite well, and they asked me if I had a zine to sell in their small press section. And I thought, well, this is my chance to put this comic idea that I've had, literally to paper. I don't have to do it online. I have a really great comic book shop behind me. That was the beginning. I think I just came up with the title, Times I Knew I Was Gay. Well, it was just one of those things that just appeared, and I was like, that's a great title. It's
quite an unusual title, isn't it? It's like the times I knew I was gay. It's like you're not 100% convinced I'm gay, but there were all these times when I thought, oh, do you know what? I am gay. It's quite a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was thinking about it the other day, and I was like, maybe it should have been the times I didn't know I was gay. Yeah. Because I spent a lot more of my time in the book not knowing. But it's a fun title, and I like the sort of like ambiguity of it.
Yeah, so it's autobiographical, isn't it, really? It's your sort of coming of age story and discovering your own sexuality and your own place in the world.
Yeah, definitely. It's been called a memoir by my publishing houses, and that feels quite funny, being 26 with a memoir. I have to wait a bit longer before I can write another one.
But I'm guessing it is aimed at younger people, isn't it? I mean, it's an illustrated cartoon format, isn't it? Presumably you made it because you wanted other, even younger people to sort of read it, who maybe hadn't gone through that process, I'm guessing, yeah?
Yeah, so in the foreword of the book, I wrote a little note saying something like, if I'd found this book when I was a kid or a teenager or a young adult, maybe I would have known a little bit more about myself, but sooner. And that was a big force behind me, because I just think that so often you just don't really know what books are queer. if they're not in an LGBT section. So I was a bit tired of like digging through books thinking like, oh, can I find something that reflects me in this? And I wanted there to just be like, you know, at least one book that someone could go into a bookshop and see massive text, Times I Knew I Was Gay, like across the room. Like, okay, I can at least start there. And then there might be, you know, other stuff.
I think it's a lot better now than it was, Ellie. I remember in the 80s trying to dig out and read Radcliffe Hall, The Well of Loneliness. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's a battle, that is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've definitely done a lot of, you know, backlog reading. My girlfriend lent me Tipping the Velvet, maybe like 2 years into our relationship, and I just became completely obsessed with that book.
Sarah Waters, yeah. I mean, she's a master writer. Yeah, she's incredible, isn't she? You never watched the TV show when it was on in the 90s?
No. I think my friend who introduced me to Buffy watched it, but I actually just can't find it. I thought maybe I'd watch it while I was working, but I can't seem to discover it online. Yeah, I'll have to dig it out.
Yes, you will. Well, I think if you watched that and you weren't a lesbian, you would definitely be a lesbian by the end of watching that. That was for sure. Yeah, so normally on the podcast, I tend to ask people what advice they might give to other young people coming out. And I know your book's not about giving advice to people as such, is it? But, you know, if you were to do it again yourself, maybe, Eleanor, would there be anything that you'd do differently, maybe?
I would hope that I could stay true to myself much more as an adolescent. I just wasted so much time being frantic about things that really didn't matter, and you know, it was exhausting. Try and, you know, believe in who you are and let that just blossom, because as you get older you'll become more confident in it.
That's a very good way of describing adolescence, actually. Frantic about everything. I think we all were a bit, weren't we, really? And every little thing that happens to you seems like a massive obstacle and a massive mountain to overcome.
I just wish I'd stopped exacerbating it. I was like, you know, there's a level amount of franticness from being a teenager. Try not to add any extra. You've got enough as it is.
Exactly. And how much happier do you think you are now that you did it on the second year of the university and come out?
Oh, I feel so different. I was talking to my mum and my dad the other day, and I said, you know, I was always so aware when I was growing up of how much love you gave me and all the space I had to be myself. But I was always a very, again, like frantic and quite cagey person as a teenager. And coming out just let me put all of that aside and give back all of that love. In the most rewarding decision that I've ever made. Yeah.
That's the lovely Eleanor Crewes. Her graphic memoir, The Times I Knew I Was Gay, is out now. And it would be remiss of me, wouldn't it, to plug someone else's book without giving ours a mention. A huge thank you to all of you who've already bought Coming Out Stories, edited by me, Emma Goswell, and Sam Walker. It's been an overwhelming last month or two. We've had so many wonderful reviews online and on social media. You can get your copy from, well, all good bookshops. But why not support an LGBT bookshop, like maybe the iconic Gay's the Word, or maybe the new kids on the block, queerlit.co.uk. That's Manchester's newest independent bookshop. Well, next episode, you'll hear from Claire. She's a trans woman who had to come out to her ex-wife and her teenage daughter.
We had this conversation where it basically boiled down to, I'm still your dad, I'm still here for you, I've not changed inside. And she said, yeah, I just get it now, I just get it.